So everyone already knows that you save roughly 13% on state income tax the moment you leave California. But the question is, are you prepared for the Washington premium that actually leaves some families with less disposable income at the end of the month? I see it happen constantly. A family moves from, say, the Bay Area or Los Angeles, and they're totally seduced by the idea of a 0% income tax, only to find their bank account draining faster here in Washington than they expected due to tons of hidden consumption costs they never even calculated. So the people who actually thrive here use the tax savings to build massive equity and secure their financial future. But the ones who fail get eaten alive by the lifestyle inflation and the sneaky annual taxes that don't show up on a standard paycheck. Well, I am Leah Courage, your Washington real estate advisor, and today we are doing a forensic audit of the real cost of living between the Golden State and the Evergreen State in 2026. I am going to break down the exact price of gas, groceries, housing, and the taxes that catch almost everyone off guard. And at the very end of this video, I am going to be revealing my arbitrage list. And these are the 3 specific Washington neighborhoods where your California salary effectively doubles because of unique local economic loopholes. So let's dive in. All right, we have to start with the biggest headline driver for anyone moving north, and that is the income tax illusion. So if you're a high earner in California, you are likely paying anywhere from 9 to 13% of your income to the state. On a $300,000 salary, that is tens of thousands of dollars disappearing from your paycheck. Washington has, for the time being, 0 state income tax, and that sounds like an immediate raise. And on paper, it definitely is. However, the state of Washington still has to pave roads and fund schools and pay firefighters. So the question is, where does that money come from, if not income tax? Well, it comes from one of the most aggressive sales tax structures in the nation. This is what we call a regressive tax system. So in California, you are taxed heavily on what you earn, but in Washington, you are taxed heavily on what you spend. So if you live in Seattle, Bellevue, or Tacoma, the combined sales tax rate is hovering around 10.3%. And that applies to almost everything that you buy, from your new furniture to your clothes to your restaurant meals. So let's take a look at the data from the Tax Foundation. So they consistently rank Washington as having one of the highest combined state and local sales tax rates in the entire United States. And here's the psychological trap that I see a lot of my clients fall into. They get their first paycheck with no state tax withheld, and then they feel rich and they feel like they have simply won the lottery. And so they go out and they buy a new boat, or they furnish their entire house at Restoration Hardware, or they lease a luxury car. They immediately ramp up their spending to match their perceived new income. But because the sales tax is so high, that money bleeds out incredibly fast. So if you're a median earner making $75,000 a year, then statistics actually show that you will actually pay a higher percentage of your income in total taxes in Washington than you would in a state with graduated income tax, simply because the sales tax eats up a larger portion of your disposable income. So the strategy here to thrive is to maintain your California discipline. Save the income tax difference. Do not spend it. If you treat Washington like a tax haven, then you win. But if you treat it like it's a shopping spree, then the state will claw that money back right at the register. So before we move on to the housing market, which is where the math really gets fun, I want to be very direct with you. Stop doing napkin math on Zillow. If you're serious about relocating, then you need a strategy and not just a search bar. You need to know what zip codes will protect your wealth and which ones are going to drain it. And that's exactly what we help with. My team helps Californians transition here every single month. We know the schools, we know the commutes, we know the financial nuances that most listing agents won't tell you about. So whether you're moving in 2 weeks or 2 years, please text us right now or call us or email us. Our contact information is below. Let's go ahead and run the real numbers for your specific situation and make sure that your move is a financial win for you. Now, let's talk about the housing reality check. So this is usually the second reason that people move here. They look at Zillow and they see that a home in Redmond costs $1.4 million, whereas a comparable home in Palo Alto might be $3 million. And it looks like a steal. And structurally it is. You get more land, you get more square footage, and often you get newer construction in Washington for the same amount of money. But we need to talk about the difference between price and payment. So in California, you have Prop 13. This is a crucial law that limits the increase of your property taxes. If you bought a house in California 20 years ago, your taxes are incredibly low because they're based on the original purchase price and not the current market value. Fantastic, right? So in Washington, property taxes are based on the assessed value of the home currently, which is recalculated annually. So the average effective property tax in King County is roughly 1%. So if you buy a home for $1.5 million in Bellevue, you're looking at a property tax bill of roughly $15,000 a year. And if the value of that home jumps to $2 million in just 3 years, which honestly is known to happen in this market, your tax bill is going to jump with it. So I've actually seen retirees move here from California thinking that they're downsizing their costs, only to find that their property tax bill in Washington is triple what they were paying for their forever home in San Diego because they lost that Prop 13 protection. You have to budget here for tax inflation. The county assessors are extremely aggressive in keeping assessments close to market value. So let's look at a hyperlocal comparison now. So if you're coming from, say, Irvine in Orange County, then that means you are used to master planned communities and manicured streets and homeowners associations. And if you try to replicate that in Bellevue or Kirkland, you are entering the most competitive market in the Pacific Northwest. So while the sticker price is technically lower than it would be in Irvine, the competition is going to be a lot more fierce. So we often see homes listed for, say, $1.3 million escalate to $1.6 million in a bidding war. And this is the California cash effect. It means you're competing against other Californians who just sold their homes and have, say, $700,000 in equity to burn. So while the mortgage rates are the same, the acquisition cost involves a lot of cash up front to bridge the appraisal gaps. So you need to be prepared for a combat sport and not just a casual and fun shopping trip. Most years, that is. So furthermore, we need to address the, quote, desirable zones. If you move to a secondary market in California, like Sacramento or the Inland Empire, homes are a lot more affordable. But if you move to a secondary market in Washington, like Snohomish or Pierce County, homes are also affordable, but the gap is actually closing in a massive way. So as more remote workers start to flood the market, areas like Bothell and Mill Creek are actually seeing price appreciation that rivals the core cities. Now, I want to introduce the turn. So this is the moment where the honeymoon phase ends for a lot of new Washington residents. It is called the car tab shock. So you think that you're done paying taxes once you close on the house and you buy your groceries, right? Well, wait until you go to the Department of Licensing to register your car in Washington. So in California, vehicle registration is definitely expensive. But in the central Puget Sound region, we have something called the RTA Tax, and this stands for the Regional Transit Authority. So there is a boundary line that encompasses most populated areas of King, Pierce, and Snohomish counties. And if you live inside this line, you are paying for the light rail expansion. The tax is calculated based on the manufacturer's suggested retail price of your vehicle, by the way, and the depreciation schedule they use is famously slow. So here is how that scenario breaks people. You move here with your brand new Tesla Model X and your Rivian truck. So in many states, registration might be a few $100s. But in the RTA zone here, because those vehicles have high MSRPs, you could be looking at car tabs that cost $800 to $1,200 per vehicle per year. So I've had clients actually call me in a rage after their first visit to the DMV because they feel punished for having nice cars. And it feels like a wealth tax. And psychologically, it hurts because it's also a recurring annual cost that provides no immediate tangible benefit to your driving experience if you aren't riding the light rail. So if you're on the fence between two neighborhoods and one is just outside the RTA line, like parts of Maple Valley or in Gig Harbor, that difference alone could save you $2,000 a year in recurring costs. So this brings us to point number 3, lifestyle inflation, specifically gas, groceries, and services. So there's a myth that's kind of dying, but it's still there mostly, that Washington is a cheap state. Trust me, it is not. It is a high cost of living state, just slightly lower than California. So first, let's talk about gas. So Washington has implemented a cap and invest, as they call it, carbon pricing program. So while the intention is environmental protection, the economic reality is that fuel suppliers pass these costs directly on to the consumer. So according from the data from AAA, Washington consistently battles California for the title of the highest gas prices in the entire country. In Washington, we are frequently over $5 a gallon for regular unleaded in the metro areas. So if you drive a massive SUV or a truck, do not expect to see savings at the pump compared to Los Angeles. It is essentially a wash. And then we have the Costco factor. Yes, so that means that food costs are generally slightly lower here than in the Bay Area, especially for produce like apples and cherries, which are grown locally. However, Washington has a very high minimum wage. So in Seattle, the minimum wage is nearly $20 an hour. And this is great for workers, but it means that the cost of services is incredibly high. So if you go out to dinner on Capitol Hill in Seattle, a cocktail is $22. A burger is $25, and it's almost identical to prices in West Hollywood or San Francisco, areas that are seemingly a lot more chic. So the service economy, like plumbers, electricians, and landscapers, is also priced at a premium because the labor pool here is very expensive. But the biggest shock for families is childcare. So if you have young children, you need to sit down for this one. Trust me. The cost of daycare in the Seattle metro area rivals the most expensive cities in the world. We're actually seeing average costs of $2,500 to $3,000 per child for full-time infant care per month. So I want you to verify this. Call a few centers in Redmond or Issaquah before you move. Do not assume that because it's Washington, it will be cheaper. So the demand from tech workers, as it were, has pushed these prices up into the stratosphere. So if you have 2 kids in daycare, that's $72,000 per year post-tax income. That alone can wipe out your income tax savings if you aren't prepared for it. However, it's not all bad news. Thank goodness. There is one category actually where Washington quietly wins, and it actually wins pretty big. And that's number 4 in utilities and insurance. So Washington State happens to be the battery of the West. We run on hydropower. So thanks to massive dams on the Columbia and Snake Rivers, we have some of the cheapest and cleanest electricity in the entire country. So let's look at the comparison. So in California, if you're a PG&E customer, you absolutely know the pain of the tiered pricing and the summer surges. Running your air conditioning in, say, Sacramento or the Central Valley can result in bills of $400 or even $500 or even $600 a month in the hot months. Woo, that's just too much. But in Washington, electricity is cheap. In Tacoma, for example, they have a public utility called Tacoma Power. I have clients with 3,000 square foot homes who rarely see an electric bill over $150, and that's in the dead of winter. And also because our summers are a lot more mild, you aren't running the AC 24/7. You might not even run the AC at all. Just open a window. That's my advice. We also need to talk about insurance. So this is a massive crisis in California right now. So major insurers like State Farm and Allstate have paused writing new policies, or they're completely pulling out of the state entirely due to wildfire risk. So if you're buying in the California foothills, you might be forced onto the FAIR plan, which is exorbitantly expensive. In Washington, on the other hand, while insurance rates are still rising, as they do nationally, we do not have the same level of catastrophic market failure here. And that means that you can still get insurance here. We do, of course, have our own risks. You need to check for flood zones near the rivers, especially after this last year, and lahar zones near Mount Rainier. But generally speaking, your homeowner's insurance will be a lot more stable and affordable here than in the fire-prone regions of California. So we've covered the taxes, we've covered housing and the car tabs and utilities, and the picture is incredibly nuanced. It's not a slam dunk in savings coming to Washington, it's a trade-off. But for those of you who want to game the system, who want to maximize the spread between, say, your California salary and your Washington costs, where should you go? Well, this brings me to my bonus section, the arbitrage list. So if I were moving from California today and I wanted to keep the absolute maximum amount of money in my pocket while still having a great quality of life, these are the locations that I would target. Arbitrage location number 1. So one of the ultimate loopholes is Camas and Washougal. So these towns are located in southern Washington, right on the Columbia River. They are essentially the suburbs of Portland, Oregon. And here is the hack. So you live in Washington and you pay 0% state income tax, but you're a 15-minute drive across the bridge to Portland, Oregon, and Oregon has 0% sales tax. So this is the holy grail of personal finance, basically. You earn your money in Washington, tax-free, and then you do your major shopping for electronics and clothes and furniture in Oregon, also tax-free. So you effectively opt out of state taxes entirely. Camas also has incredible schools and a small town kind of vibe that feels very different from the congestion of Seattle. Arbitrage location number 2 is beautiful Gig Harbor. So if you're coming from a coastal California city like Newport Beach or Sausalito, you're definitely used to a certain kind of aesthetic. You want water, you want boats, you want a walkable waterfront. But if you try to buy that in, say, Kirkland or Mercer Island in King County, you're going to be paying $10 million for that property. So Gig Harbor offers that same maritime luxury feel for a fraction of the price. It's located across the bridge from Tacoma, and the price per square foot here is significantly lower than King County. In Gig Harbor, you can buy a stunning view home for $1.5 million that would easily cost $5 million plus in the Bay Area. Plus, parts of Gig Harbor are actually outside the RTA tax zone, saving you money on those car tabs. It feels exclusive, but the math is incredibly favorable in Gig Harbor. Arbitrage location number 3 is Maple Valley. And this is for the families who want the Walnut Creek or the Pleasanton kind of lifestyle. You want safety, you want newer construction, and you want great sports fields for kids, and you want a massive house. So Maple Valley is a bedroom community southeast of Seattle. In Maple Valley, you can still find a large 3,000 square foot home on a decent sized lot for under $1 million in a lot of cases. And that same house in California suburbs would be $2 or $3 million. And the schools in Maple Valley are top rated, the crime is low, and you get the quintessential Pacific Northwest forest vibe, but without the downtown Seattle price tag. So finally, moving states is really not just about packing boxes. Of course, it's about completely restructuring your entire financial life. You must look beyond the headlines. And yes, the lack of income tax, for the moment, in Washington is a gift, but the sales tax, the car tabs, and the daycare costs are the serious price of admission that we have here. So the people who win in Washington are the ones who come in with their eyes wide open. They budget for the consumption taxes and they choose their neighborhood strategically to minimize the RTA bite, especially if they're not using the light rail. And they use the equity that they save to build real, lasting wealth. So don't let the sticker shock of a $20 cocktail in Seattle ruin the joy of paying zero income tax. It's all about balance. So thank you so much for watching, and if you found this breakdown helpful, then please be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We are releasing deep dives on these specific kind of neighborhoods and these areas in Washington every single week and talking about all things real estate related. And remember, whether you are looking for the tax haven of Camas or the luxury values of Gig Harbor, my team is here to guide you home. Please reach out to us using the information. It's in the description below, and let's get your Washington story started. I am Leah Courage. Thank you again so much for watching. Keep exploring, and I'll see you in the next video.